In this video, let's talk about price actions pairing technique. Okay, first time we are talking about price actions. So far we had been dealing with scientific way of reading markets. Now let's look at price and try to gauge who is winning. Is it buyers or sellers? So let's look at the thing. So the first pattern which we see, the pattern name is two sisters. So here if you see the first candle, that's basically the first bar. The first bar, the range is big. That basically means there is a ease of downward movement, but the close is in middle. So what happened is, so though the day had a ease of downward movement or ease of movement in particular day, but the close was in between. So it is an indecision day. What happened the next day is, the next day the range was bit narrow than the previous range, as you can see in the chart. The second bar is actually a very small bar compared to the first bar. So the ease of movement was not present, but again it closed in the middle. That means even today there was a bit of confusion where who was actually leading the show. But when we closely look both of them together, we can see the second bar, actually the close is below the previous bar. This actually means bullish. So the next day, that is on day 3rd, if the candle opens above this, it is a bullish thing, and if it is below this, if at all the activity is below the second day's closing price, that's basically it is a bearish movement. So now let's look at the second candle. That's like second pairs. This second pair, the name is Bad Boys 1 because there is a second part of Bad Boys 2. So in this second part, the first candle here is a clear-cut ease of downward movement candle. That's basically there was a huge, very good move towards the downward, and it closed below. The next candle, that's basically bar 2, is actually very small. It was a very narrow range. It can be a shortening of thrust, or it can also say that since the ease of downward movement is not good, but the thing is, can you see the close? The close is below the previous day. So that basically means there is a bearish sentiment because the close is below the previous low. But we need to be very careful. If at all the trading happens above this price, then basically the sentiment is changed. Then comes the third part. The third part is Bad Boys 3. The third pair is Bad Boys 2. So in this, what happens is the day A is again a ease of movement downward bar. The second bar had a good that like it looks like a small gap down and a clear narrow range, but a strong bearish closing. So this particular Bad Boys 2 is more bearish than the previous two candles. Then comes the next, that's like Angry Sisters. That's basically the first one is going down. The next one is a top, like bottom reversal kind of pattern where the closing is very high. So basically this tells a bullish story. That's basically all the grains of the previous candle is taken out. So these patterns are to be closed. That's basically we are looking at the range and close only and interpreting all the things. So next comes the fifth pair. The fifth pair is twinning. So what is happening is there is a ease of downward movement, there is a close, then again there is a upward move, and then again a downward move, and there is a close. So this is actually tells, this can also tell that there is a temporary support being formed, but we should interpret it with other context also. It can be a temporary support, and also it is a clearly a huge advantage to the bear side because huge selling pressure has been coming from the top. The next is Winger. This particular small, that's basically there are two candles. The first candle has a ease of downward movement and it is going up and closing little above the middle. So this is a bit of bullish sentiment. But the next candle is very low and it is like a plus like structure. That's basically the close is in the middle and the range is very small. This particular action is also called hinge. So basically if at all price goes above this, we have a very small point of entry and a point of stop loss. So this can be a very good bullish or bearish trade, depends upon the next candlesticks or next play which is happening. Then the seventh action is, that's basically, again there are two pairs because it's pairs, it is invisible jump. So on the first day the candle is going up, there is a upward ease of movement and the closing is also very strong. But what happens the next day is price gaps down and stays in a very small hinge again. Hinge basically again very narrow range, and even that's closing is in between. So this is a very bearish action because we saw a huge gap down and the cause is getting built in a very small range. The price can further go down is what we can expect. Then comes the eighth pattern. Eighth pattern, again the price is going up and then again coming down and closing in at the bottom face. The next day there is this pattern's name is enthu cutlet. The next day the price opens gap up, goes little up, then comes little down. The closing is bit weak here, but still it is not actually completely weak, though there was a selling pressure from top because the close is little above, so above the previous day's close. So these are enthu cutlet candles. Then comes the bottom pickers. So again these are like very small candles, the range is very narrow, the close is below. The next candle, the range is very small and the close is also at the bottom. We can actually expect the price to go down from here, or there can be a trend reversal, but looking at just these two candles, the action would be, the bias would be towards bearish side. And again now this particular, the last pattern which we are going to look today is younger sister. So here again it would be the first pattern's reversal. That's basically they are closing in the middle. The first candle has a small range and it is closing in the middle. The next candle has a bit of bigger range and the closing is towards the down. That's basically, there is a huge selling pressure from the top, but if you closely observe the close price of both this, you will see the second candle is closed little up. So we can actually see there can be a bullish reversal after this candle, but yeah, this is little confusing candle. So what this 10 price action or bar or pairing tells us is, it tells us how we can actually interpret the price story. So now let's look at keeping this all together as shown in screen and try to interpret our own action. Though when we are actually trading this, we will look at this particular hypothesis or this particular action in detail so that we can make a few sense of the data, but that is altogether a different game which we will explore in detail in future.